today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest updates to the women's ring IQ pound-for-pound list. A lot of action this past weekend that will be reflected. In the women's super featherweight division, we saw Alicia Baumgartner take on Elham Mekhaled for the undisputed women's super featherweight crown. Alicia won the fight. Alicia, who ahead of the fight, ranked in at number 6 on the women's ring IQ pound-for-pound list, just behind Senicia Estriadia. And as I stated in my previous video, should Alicia Baumgartner be successful, she will move from number 6 up to number 5. For becoming her division's undisputed champion, she doesn't have a vice grip on that number 5 spot, though. Senicia Estriada is ranked right behind her, and she could reclaim that spot should she be successful opposite the ring Tina Ruprecht in their upcoming unification match on the undercard of Ramirez versus Comey. Both Alicia and Senicia have beaten 2 world champions apiece. Senicia won the WBA title at minimum weight from long-reigning champion Annabelle Ortiz and the WBO title at light flyweight from Japan's own Tenkai Tsunami. Alicia Baumgartner won the WBC title when she stopped Terry Harpier over a year ago. Over a year? It's been that long.
It has.
Time flies when you're unifying the division. She won the WBC from Terry. She won the IBF and WBO titles last year opposite the ring Michaela Mayer. Both Alicia and Senicia have beaten 2 world champions apiece. Senicia has been a champion at more than one weight. That's the argument that she's got working for her, whereas Alicia, currently, she is her division's undisputed champion, the best super featherweight in the world until further notice. For that, she advances just ahead of Senicia from number 6 to number 5. As a result of this past weekend's contest, this past weekend's undisputed super featherweight title fight, there's also the featherweight title fight to discuss, and that fight's outcome. Undisputed. Amanda Serrano made history this past weekend in what was that card's main event opposite the ring Mexico's own Erica Cruz. Amanda won the fight. And made history in the process of doing so, which further strengthened her argument to move up from number 3 up to number 2 on the women's ring IQ pound-for-pound list. Just ahead of Clarissa Shields. And the argument is simple. Both Clarissa and Amanda have beaten 4 world champions apiece and taken belts from them. Clarissa beat Nikki Adler at super middleweight, Christina Hammer at middleweight, and Savannah Marshall and Marie-Eve Dicker at junior middleweight. Whereas Amanda Serrano, she beat Maria Maderna, Heather Hardy, Sarah Mahfoud, and more recently, Erica Cruz. Makes Amanda's argument a bit stronger is she has been a more active fighter the last 12 months, the last 2 years really. She has been a more active fighter than Clarissa Shields, and she has a more robust body of work overall. Now, you can argue that Clarissa Shields has been an undisputed champion more times at more weights than Amanda Serrano. That might be true, but many of those titles were vacant. It's not like Clarissa Shields won every single one of those titles from a reigning champion. Many of those titles, from 160 down to 154, many of them were vacant. And I understand that Amanda Serrano has also picked up a number of vacant titles over the years. What separates them is that Amanda's beaten the same number of champions as Clarissa, taken belts from them, but Amanda's been a champion at more weights than Clarissa by and large.
Not even close.
Amanda's been a champion at 7 weights to Clarissa Shields' 3.
On top of becoming an undisputed champion.
Now, if you find yourself wondering why is it that Katie Taylor is ranked ahead of Amanda Serrano in spite of Katie not having been a champion at as many weights as Amanda Serrano, it's because Katie beat Amanda Serrano.
It's because they actually fought.
Katie won the first fight. Amanda may win the second.
She might. And if she does, she will overtake Katie Taylor as the number 1 ranked pound-for-pound fighter in the sport.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, she advances from number 3 up to number 2, making her upcoming fight with Katie Taylor a fight featuring the number 1 and number 2 pound-for-pound fighters in the sport.
It's high stakes.
You know, Amanda and Katie, they're both first ballot Hall of Famers. The day they decide to retire, their ticket is already punched. Their legacy is already established. Whatever they're both doing now is just extra credit.
They're both guaranteed to get into the Hall of Fame, irrespective of what happens in a second fight. Though if Amanda wins, she will overtake Katie Taylor as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the sport.
There is also an update to the lower tier of the women's ring IQ pound-for-pound list. Costa Rica's own Yokasta Valle had a very big year last year. She's actually been on a very strong run.
An active one as well. She's been busy.
She fought 3 times in 2021, 4 times in 2022, 4 times last year.
Last 2 fights were against world champions. Her last 2 fights were against world champions. 2 world champions at 2 separate weights. The unification match with Thitu Nunyan at minimum weight, and
the fight with Argentina's own unified champion upstairs at light flyweight, the fight with Evelyn Bermudez for what was the WBO and IBF title. She won both of those fights.
that was all last year.
And for that, Yokasta Valle cracks the women's ring IQ pound-for-pound list, coming in at number 9, just ahead of unified champion Marlena Esparza, who's beaten the same number of world champions as Yokasta, but hasn't been a champion at the same number of weights as Yokasta.
Yokasta is a 2-division champion, whereas Marlene, she's only been a champion at 1 weight, just 1 weight.
What that essentially means is that the previously number 10 ranked Franchon Cruz falls off the list. Even though she's undisputed, she hasn't beaten the same number of champions as either Marlena Esparza or Yokasta Valle.
The saving grace is that with a number of successful title defenses, she can be reintegrated into the list. It all depends on what she does moving forward and how often she does it.
We'll see what happens. For now, these are the current updates to the women's ring IQ pound-for-pound list. In men's middleweight news, on the heels of Gennady Golovkin vacating the IBF title, the title I thought he was going to defend against Esquiva Falcao, Golovkin versus Lara has been reordered in the WBA's title consolidation effort.
Last year, there were reports that Gennady would defend the IBF title against Esquiva Falcao in Kazakhstan, but it seems there's been a change of plans because he's dropped the IBF title.
Now, BoxingScene.com has confirmed that the WBA has reordered a title consolidation clash between its recognized middleweight belt holders. The development came hours after Boxing Scene's report that Golovkin vacated his IBF middleweight title in lieu of a mandatory title defense versus Brazil's Esquiva Falcao. The respective teams for Golovkin and Lara are once again forced to work out terms for their long overdue consolidation bout, this time with a 15-day negotiation period in lieu of the standard 30-day allotment. There is a chance that the fight heads to a purse bid, or that one side simply vacates their version of the middleweight title, as the WBA brass has long ago lost its patience in bringing resolution to the matter.
Because Gennady already dropped one of his titles, I don't get the sense he's too keen on keeping the other.
Golovkin holds the WBA Super version of the title and is self-promoted through his Triple G promotions. Lara is recognized as WBA regular middleweight titleist and who fights under the Premier Boxing Champions banner with Tom Brown's TGB Promotions, listed as the recognized promoter in talks. Please consider this communication as a notification for mandatory negotiations for the WBA middleweight division. WBA Championships Committee Chairman Carlos Chavez stated to Golovkin via official letter, a copy of which was obtained by BoxingScene.com. Please take notice that, pursuant to resolution, special permit to request a box for Unified Super Middleweight Division and Championship Rule C11, you must defend the title.
You know, it might turn out that Golovkin drops the WBA title by the time that this video is uploaded.
He might drop the title by the time this video is published. News might break that Golovkin has vacated both alphabet titles given where he is in his career. He's already made very good money. The money that he made in the first 2 Canelo fights and the money that he made on the DAZN platform. He made a fortune on DAZN.
And whatever he just made fighting Canelo Alvarez for a 3rd time.
He's not hard up for money. He's not strapped for cash. Since you won the Super Championship on April 9th of 2022, the next obligatory championship bout is past due from August 8th of last year and shall be against the world champion official contender Erislandy Lara. The bout was previously ordered in September of last year, 6 days after Golovkin fell short in his trilogy clash with Canelo Alvarez, where Golovkin unsuccessfully challenged for Alvarez's undisputed championship while his own WBA WBA IBF middleweight title reign was not at risk. It was, however, on the clock. Golovkin inherited Lara as a mandatory challenger upon stopping Murata in the 9th round of their April 9th title unification in Saitama, Japan. The 40-year-old Kazakh boxer defended his IBF belt while claiming the WBA super title with the win.
If by the time this video is uploaded, Gennady drops the WBA title next and retires, it will be somewhat of a stain on his legacy because both he and Erislandy Lara, they're in the same age group and they have history.
It's not like Erislandy Lara is some young, unbeaten up-and-comers. He's getting long in the tooth, the same as Gennady. They're in the exact same place in their careers. And for the longest time, Golovkin versus Lara was a conversation, even if it got put on the back burner for bigger fights, like the Canelo fights and the Murata fight.
I understood.
But if he doesn't fight him now, it will be seen as an indictment. The WBA granted a special permission to Golovkin to move up a division and fight Canelo Alvarez on September 17th of last year, with the condition that he would return to middleweight to face Lara and would not be granted another special permission. Chavez specified at the time. Golovkin found one final loophole when he approached the IBF to enforce his mandatory versus Falcao. The WBA met with the IBF and agreed to allow Falcao to leapfrog Lara in the mandatory title rotation, with the fight ordered just 6 days prior to the WBA deadline to finalize Golovkin versus Lara. Erislandy Lara, who claimed the secondary WBA world regular middleweight title following a first-round knockout of aspiring contender Thomas Cornflake Lamana. Last May in Carson, California, the Cuban export previously served as a secondary WBA junior middleweight titleist, vacating the belt in favor of remaining at middleweight. He has since made one successful title defense, an 8th-round knockout of Gary Spike O'Sullivan on May 28th in Brooklyn, New York.
I'm not confident that Golovkin's going to fight Lara at this point. If he didn't care about hanging on to the IBF title, why would he care about hanging on to the WBA title?
He's not at a stage in his career where he's all that concerned with mandatory challengers, it seems, or procuring alphabet titles, hanging on to them.
And it's a shame because I would have liked to have seen Gennady and Erislandy settle their business, settle their affairs. That fight was a conversation some years ago, but it never got off the ground.
I don't really get the sense it's going to now. In lieu of this news, Oscar De La Hoya, the golden boy himself, he made a suggestion. He asked, would you watch Triple G versus Jaime Munguia, and who wins?
You know, this is what I thought Gennady was going to do. I thought he was going to take care of Falcao in Kazakhstan, then move into a fight with Jaime Munguia.
In that scenario, he would have had to drop the WBA title to do it, but I figured that he would because a Munguia fight gets you more money than a Lara fight. A Lara mandated title defense.
Lara's a good fighter, but he ain't worth no money.
Golovkin versus Munguia, with or without belts on the line, is a hotter ticket than a Lara fight would be.
I don't know what the plan is anymore.
Gennady Golovkin hasn't officially retired, not yet, but we might be on the eve of that news. We'll just have to wait and see. Finally, in men's heavyweight news, per a tweet from Michael Benson, Deontay Wilder has offered to fight Francis Ngannou in a 2-fight boxing MMA deal. I'd love to go to Africa for that. Let's make it a 2-fight deal. Everybody always comes to boxing. Let's do this. You come to my house, I'll come to yours.
There's been a feeling in some circles, small ones, that Deontay Wilder, Team Wilder, they're not really committed to that Andy Ruiz fight.
I don't know what to make of it because Wilder versus Ruiz should be a relatively easy fight to make, an easy in-house fight to make that doesn't come with any promotional or platform issues tacked onto it. They don't have to work with anybody else to do that fight.
But it hasn't been announced.
There isn't so much as a tentative fight date for the match. The match itself is a WBC interim title fight intended to position the winner for a shot at the full title, a shot at the full WBC title and all the other belts. It's a shot at the winner of Fury versus Usyk.
But how bad do you think Wilder wants the winner of that fight? Be honest.
And Wilder's team. What if the winner of the fight is Tyson Fury? We're expected to believe that Deontay would box him for a 4th time?
What if the winner is Alexander Usyk?
Wilder versus Usyk would put some money in Deontay Wilder's pocket, but at his age, him getting long in the tooth, I mean, he's pushing 40. How bad do you think he really wants to fight for alphabet titles?
Do you think that's still important to him?
On the heels of this news, that Gennady Golovkin, who's in the same age bracket as Deontay Wilder, he very recently relinquished one of his 2 alphabet titles, and by the time this video is uploaded, news might break that he vacated the other.
So who's to say that Wilder, who's in the same age bracket as Gennady, doesn't feel the same way? He's just not all that interested in alphabet titles at this stage in his career.
Who's to say? The most he stands to gain from an Andy Ruiz fight is a position as the WBC's mandatory challenger. There actually are bigger fights for Deontay to make. One among them is the Joshua fight, which Shelly Finkel was very recently pushing for. But Anthony's on the bounce.
You guys have to wait, even if you don't want to.
Hence this expressed interest in facing mixed martial artist, former UFC champion Francis Ngannou, who is a network and promotional free agent, free to go wherever he wants.
There's nothing stopping him. If Showtime can formulate an offer for Francis Ngannou to do a crossover MMA boxing fight with Deontay Wilder,
he has the autonomy to do it. There's nothing stopping him, though it is up to Showtime to formulate the offer, because Francis isn't with anybody.
Wilder's talking about a 2-fight deal where Francis fights him in a boxing ring, and he fights Francis in the octagon.
I don't know if that's the deal structure that Wilder's team, the people who handle his business for him, I don't know if that's the deal structure they go for. Wilder in the octagon at this age, trying to delve into mixed martial arts.
That wouldn't end well.
The truth is that Deontay Wilder would make a lot more money boxing Francis Ngannou once than boxing Andy Ruiz 2 and 3 and 4 times.
That's the truth.
And it's a safer fight than an Andy Ruiz fight, because Francis Ngannou, God bless him, skilled MMA fighter that he might be, he's not a boxer.
He doesn't have the muscle memory of a boxer.
We often talk about how Deontay Wilder isn't fundamentally sound. He's far from skilled, but he's still skilled enough to beat an MMA fighter crossing over into boxing.
So you see what the appeal is.
The Francis Ngannou fight is in fact a more attractive proposition to Team Wilder than boxing Andy Ruiz for mandatory status.
For the Showtime platform,
Wilder versus Ngannou as a crossover fight could muster up similar or comparable metrics to the Mayweather versus McGregor crossover fight.
they need those metrics because their numbers have been in the tank.
Nothing short of the Davis versus Ryan Garcia fight, which is in jeopardy, nothing short of that they've got going on, could muster up comparable numbers to the numbers Wilder versus Ngannou could muster up. So there's reason enough to do it. I just question if they're going to.
Francis Ngannou has expressed an interest in boxing Wilder, and Wilder's returned the favor. He's done the same.
But are they actually negotiating?